Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment you are going to hear the voice of a man who will tell you some tremendously important facts.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I have an incredibly special episode, one I've been so excited for, the one, the only Preston Smiles. If you follow my channel and you're in that particular genre, then you for sure know Preston Smiles. Preston is an amazing motivational speaker with an incredible YouTube channel. He is so authentic and one of my very favorite people. And I never really thought I'd get a chance to talk with him. And I got a chance to talk to Preston Smiles. So welcome to the Reality Revolution, Preston.
Oh, Ra! Yes. Blessings and blessings, Brian. Thank you for having me. I'm super pumped and excited to be here to have this chat and this meeting of the minds and the hearts, brother.
Thank you so much for coming on. So for people that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your story. And you had some events that you've talked about in other interviews that sort of transformed you and put you on the path that you're on now. So let me know a little bit more about the origin story of Preston Smiles.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, usually when people say, who are you? I have two answers. One of them is the standard one, and the other one is what I know to be the truth, which is I am a unique emanation of God, reflecting, revealing God's love in only the way that I can. And so everything I'm about to share with you is the human personality part of me, and not what I believe to be true about me. These are things that did occur, but I don't believe they're true about me anymore. So I grew up in LA in a sort of middle-class neighborhood that we turned into a war zone as children because I grew up during a time where gangster rap was extremely perpetuated, and put that next to Rambo and Terminator and all the different things. I just wanted to be a tough guy. So my friends and I used to do a bunch of stuff, stupid stuff, fighting, spray painting, beating people up, just stupid kid stuff, throwing rocks. And I also played basketball and all that stuff. But what was under the me that was showing up at that time was I was placed in special education very early on as a kid. And they didn't catch that I was dyslexic. And so I made up a story that I was stupid, that I was dumb, that I was less than. And that story perpetuated throughout the majority of my life. And so mix that and couple that with an extremely stressed out mother who was doing her best, and a father who was battling his own demons, including some things with drugs. His base desires, allowing his sexual proclivities to hurt the people around him. And so all of that was mixed up in this beautiful ocean of devotion, this interesting jambalaya. And I grew up inside of that. And I had the good fortune of having a lot of different kinds of friends. And I had this crew, and this is a pretty big moment, which sort of shifted everything for me. But I had this crew, Rudy and Scott. And Rudy and Scott and myself used to always go out. I was 15. We'd go out and we'd do these things called runouts, where we'd go into a liquor store, grab a bunch of beer and alcohol, and pretend like we were 21. And the moment we got to the counter, we'd just run out. And we used to do that all the time. Like, I've literally done that to more than 100 stores. I've went back and paid all of those liquor stores that are still there money. Years and 20, 30 years later, I went back and paid all of them back. But my father, for all his faults, very early on used to pour into me. And one of the things he used to say to me is, you are a leader. And if for any reason something doesn't feel right and everybody in the crowd is going right, but you feel like left is the way, you will do that no matter what. He used to say that to me all the time. So fast forward to a particular night, Scott calls me, my best friend, And he's like, yo, we're going out, coming to get you in like 30 minutes. And I was like, ooh, nah, man, I don't think I'm going. And it was just one of those like quick internal like no's, right? And right now in my work, on my YouTube channel and everywhere, and I've coached thousands of people. I've led workshops all over the world. I've been on all the biggest channels, all the stuff. I've written books, all of this. My biggest teachings are saying yes to your yes and no to your no. Because I do believe that all of us have an internal compass and a divine sacred yes that's pulsating and pulling us forward. And so this is me at 15 years old, hearing this still small voice tell me no. And then the next voice was my dad's, which was, if everybody's going this way, but it doesn't feel right to you, you'll go the opposite. So I say no. My friend, does what friends do. And was like, oh, you're going to be a little beep. And I'm like, yeah, man, tonight I am. But I'll see you tomorrow. So hang up the phone. And within an hour, every single person in that blue Astro van that I was in the night before that, and the night before that, and the night before that, every single person in there was shot. Wow. And my best friend was shot in the head and died instantly. And that, for me, was one of those turning point moments where I realized that the tough guy persona wasn't for me. We were playing a game as kids that we didn't fully understand. At that time, I had been taught so much that big boys don't cry that I actually didn't cry either. It had been beaten out of me through all the societal messaging. And so I also had survivor's guilt. I didn't process any of that. And that led me to a lot of different things, but to the point where, and this is not the last part of the story, but the part I want you to hear. I was 33 years old when I moved back in with my mom. And I had this moment, and I don't know if anybody's listening or anybody in the comments wants to put this, but I had this moment where I was like, I am too amazing to be experiencing lack, right? Like I felt like, oh, you have all this medicine on your heart, but you keep, being broke. There's something there. There's something there for you, right? So I moved back in with my mom at 33. According to the IRS, I was making $36,000 a year, 2012, 2013. 2014, I made 150,000. 2015, 300. 2016, 600. 17, 1 million. The list goes on. I share that. And I know in the spiritual world, in the spiritual community, oftentimes we distance ourselves from numbers and business and all of that stuff. But for me, this is major breakthroughs, like extraordinary breakthroughs in my life. And it was all connected to the part of me that thought I was stupid. I was still operating from the 8 and 9-year-old consciousness when I was 33. And so here I am now as a 42-year-old man, having a completely different experience. And I thought it would be important for your audience to know that.
It's an amazing story, and it's so inspirational. And it's what I find amazing when I first caught onto your videos and watch is how it's never really planned. I've seen so many times you'll just be going for a walk. You'll be going for a walk. I can see the background, and it's just like you are hitting me with the most amazing wisdom coming out of nowhere. I just want to know, before we go any further, where do you find your flow? Where did it come from? Because I mean, you will speak for 20 minutes in a video, and you never stop it. It's never edited. It's you don't make a mistake. It's just coming from some divine source. So help me to tap into what you got. Explain it to me.
Yes, Brian, that is awesome. And thank you for the observation. That is obviously years of fine-tuning my channel, and a part of the story I shared, right? I have other stories. I was in New York, and I'm going to answer your question, but I just wanted to just share this short story. I was in New York, and I think it's helpful, right? Because I believe that our first thought is the true one. Second thought, slightly true. Third thought, by the time we get to the third thought and the fifth and the 20th thought, it's talking ourselves out of what was initially true. And so short answer to your question is I don't filter. I don't try to figure it out. I just say yes to the yes. I don't have to know. I just have to know the knower, right? And I believe that spirit can only do for us what it can do through us. So I open myself up. I actually say, spirit, use me, right? There's 4 levels of consciousness: to me, by me, through me, as me, right? I daily step into through me, use me. Let me be a source, a beacon, a light for God's love, for the universe's love, for to be an eternal expression, right? And so I don't try to figure it out. I just allow it to do its thing. How I do that is by listening to the first thought, the first hit, the body hit, the sensation, the anything. I perceive all of that as yes. I perceive that the universe, God, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, source, divine intelligence only has one answer ever. And that answer is yes. It was a yes to Hitler. It was a yes to Gandhi. It's a yes to Brian Scott, and it's a yes to Preston Smiles. On every single level, only one power, not 2. This is my perception. Not 3 powers, not 7 powers. There's only one. And that one power is always saying yes. So for me, when I turn that camera on, it's because something came through and I say, use me. I'll get out of the way now. I'll get out of the way, and I will trust that whatever I say is what's needed and necessary in that moment for the for whoever has eyes to see and heart to hear and all that stuff.
Amazing. As somebody that I've been studying neuro-linguistic programming for a long time, and took classes. This is something I did in college, and so when I came upon your channel, I clearly could see that you, on top of being able to go into the flow in the moment and using your profound talent, you were also integrating amazing teachings from NLP. And I wanted to, before we go beyond that, I wanted to get your background, because you've really used some of those technologies, I like to call them, those ideas transformatively in helping others. So talk to me about that.
Yes. So I think about 5 years ago, did a NLP practitioner 3-week-long thing where it was every day from 7 to 5 kind of deal. What's interesting about that, and here's my truth. All of us have the capacity to receive universal intelligence, right? I believe that the universe is looking for willing channels to pour into so that it may be expressed. I believe that the fruit doesn't belong to the tree, it belongs to the ecosystem. And so when the universe is pouring, right, let's say it pours into Grindler and Bandler, it's also pouring into Slindler and Chandler, right? It's also pouring into any willing vessel, right? Because the technology is the technology is the technology. It's not about the person or the name we put on the thing, right? Because we as humans like to label stuff. We say, oh, this is this and this is that. Well, you go off in the jungle, or you spend some time in the bush like I have in Africa, and you'll quickly recognize, like, oh, they know stuff that we've labeled this or that. So short answer is I have done it. But even before I did, I was using those things without knowing what I was using. So, in NLP, they have something called future casting, right? Like I was doing that before I understood that I was doing that. And so when I did go through the process, I was like, wait, what? Right? And don't get me wrong, I learned so much from doing that training. But I've done so many trainings that they just overlap. And for me personally, I don't care about the label on top. My job is not to, not in this lifetime, to be a disciple of one thing. I don't know if you know Michael Beckwith or Agape. When I got here to Austin 2 years ago, I was studying to be a practitioner and then a reverend under him. And we had extensive conversations. And there was a strong chance that I would have been in line to support him in transitioning out of his space, right?
Mhm.
But there was something that it wasn't a yes. And what I've recognized is like, my dharma in this lifetime is not necessarily to be like a major student of one thing, but to just be receptive to all things and be the channel. I take my hat off to some of the work that's been done in NLP and all the somatic experiencing work and trauma work. And there's so many amazing people out there, including yourself, man. Let me just take a moment to acknowledge what you've been doing and how much you've been supporting humanity.
Thank you, brother.
By using a tool that most people, especially your age and my age, right, would look at and go, oh, technology, right? And you said, bring it.
Mhm.
I'll support, right? That's a big deal, man. So I'm like extremely humbled by people like yourself and the people who created NLP and all the other things that have been created.
Now, the unique dynamic that you have brought is that you also have an amazing wife, and she's teaching the same things, and that you're teaching, and so talk to me about the dynamics. You've obviously learned a lot from the dynamics of your relationship with your wife.
Yes, for sure, man. I have 4 kids, or they have me.
Right.
A beautiful wife, 4 businesses, and a lot on my plate. And people often ask me, like, what's your favorite book, or where do you study under? I say, all I have to do is look around my own life. All the content's there, right? If I slow down to the speed of wisdom and actually pay attention, there's all these little micro nuanced moments that occur, even especially with my wife, because she in some ways has replaced my mother, right? You can run, but you can't hide. And so what I mean by that is the little boy in me that believed that his needs didn't count or matter. I suppressed those needs because my mom was stressed out. And so that got locked into my somatic body. Mm-hmm. And became a mood, a way of being, which I got celebrated for. Oh, Preston's so easy. Preston's so responsible. Preston's always there. He's the rock for people, right? I got celebrated for that. And then, of course, from that energetic space, I also attracted someone, my wife, who has a similar flow. She is not my mom. They're both Virgos. And strong, heavy-handed, big personality women. And so my wife is another beautiful opportunity for me to come home to the self. And I learned so much. I don't think there's anything harder on the planet than being in a conscious partnership, period. And take it one step further, conscious partnership, married, right? Kids, easy, right? They're challenging, but easy. Right? You have unconditional love for kids. Any parent will say, I'd die for my kids. When it comes to your partner, right? That's why the divorce rate's so high. That's why people struggle so much. And for me, the power is not that I don't mess up. It's that I re-enter the room, right? That's what makes me awesome, is that when we fight and when stuff comes up and when I notice my own insecurities and when I drop her and don't take care of her, the power is not that those things never happen. It's that I come back and I repair and I speak truth and I love on her and I understand that we are operating together, co-regulating each other in partnership out of 7.7 billion people on the planet. I called her in and she called me in. So yes, our dynamic is awesome and interesting. And she's really awesome and knows how to dance between her masculine and feminine and when to do it and when not to. So we're figuring it out though.
Awesome. So one of the things that you've kind of taught me is how to navigate through challenges as they come along the way. It's not about always being in that positive state. It's about how you react to what's happening in the world. Teach the people that are listening, talk to me a little bit about how you learned about facing challenges that come up, because we all have to face them. You have a unique modality in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I take 20 million angles on that, but I'll start with um, there is conceiving, there is perceiving, and then there's receiving, right? And so the moment something comes through, right? Something as simple as I would like a cup of coffee, right? I'm conceiving. There is an idea. There is something coming forward. There is a instruction manual. The moment it comes through, right? I would like a coffee. This is a desire that I put into the space. Well, that then goes into the law of mind and the law of opposites, right? The law of mind and law of opposites essentially states that the moment you produce a desire, the universe creates a contextual field for us to understand that that has or has not occurred. So an example of that would be, I would like to know up. Well, you can't tell me about up without explaining down. You can't tell me about left if I don't understand right. You can't tell me about hot if I have no concept of cold. So the moment I declare hot, the universe is going to create a contextual field where I experience cold, so that when I receive hot, I know that it's hot. Are you tracking so far?
Yeah.
So for me, when problems arise, and I'm doing air quotes for those who cannot see my fingers, I expect them because it's a part of the process. Now, there's conceiving, perceiving, receiving. Now, under perceiving, this is where all the work is, because if our perception is tainted, it becomes deception. And the moment we start to deceive, right, and listen to the deception, it changes our reception. So it's like me saying, hey, this is the year I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And then 3 hours later, my friend says, hey, I just bought us donuts, right? This went into the law of mind and the law of opposites. Now the donuts are there and I take a bite, right? And then deception, right? Of course you took a bite. Of course you're a fat ass. Of course you're not going to make it. Of course this isn't real, right? So now how I'm receiving the initial conception is tainted by the deception. So my work is to constantly clean up my perception. And so for me, problems are a part of life. They're not separate from. I expect them. I expect opposition. I expect that to be there. Therefore, it doesn't shock me or scare me. It's like, oh yeah, this is what happens, because I can't know left without right. This is a part of the process, not some extra part that has me, I'm cursed, right? Sometimes we think we're special in our pain. And my truth is that there's never, ever, ever anything that's put on your plate that you cannot handle. If it's on your plate, it's because it's there for you to eat or there for you to pass to someone else.
Amazing. So another thing that you've kind of taught me about is balance, especially for high performers and high achievers. We all have to find a level of balance, and you really, you walk the walk. You've shown how you can balance family and so many other things. Teach me about balance, Preston.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Balance is a covert word for control, which is, that comes with the skin suit. We humans are always seeking approval, control, and security, right? Security being, we call it safety, emotional security, relational security, financial security, et cetera, right? And we want to feel approved of so that we can feel safe. And when those two things don't match up, then we try to control everything we possibly can. So I don't necessarily believe in balance. I believe in counterbalancing. I believe in recognizing what one's priorities are for now. What do I care about now, right? In the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, he talks about how oftentimes, life is like juggling a bunch of balls. But the tricky thing is that some of those balls are glass. And if you drop them, it's not that they can't be put back together, but it's going to be very challenging. So out of the 6 balls that we as entrepreneurs and householders and people and parents and all these things, out of all those balls, which ones are glass? Which ones are important not to drop?
So the next thing I wanted to talk about, because I got you with me, and it's consciousness. Let's go a little bit deeper than all that surface level stuff that you might have talked about.
Yeah.
What is right now? We're in this skin suit, like you call it, and we're experiencing a certain level of consciousness that we access through our different senses. And so I know you've thought about this. Where are we going, and what is the next level of consciousness that we're moving towards?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, man. I genuinely would like to know what you think. I will hit a ball over and let's see if you hit one back. I personally do not believe in a Santa Claus God. So the one that I subscribe to is the one that doesn't have preferences. I don't believe, like I said, in 2 powers or 3 powers. I believe in one. So it would be like somebody slapping the ocean, like smacking their hand on the water, and some drops going in the air. Those drops are still the ocean. They may think that they're individualized. They may think that they're on their individual journey, and they are to some degree, but they're still the ocean. And so for me, I don't believe there's anything separate than God, separate than the love intelligence that rules the planet. There is nothing separate. The worst things and the best things, all God. All of it isness dancing.
It's a beautifully well said statement. My idea is that we are all the same being. That God is a protean being, and he or she enters into all the living beings and all things around us all at the same time, and each of us being individualized in this particular experience, which to me is sort of like a simulation. And sometimes I ponder it like something I've experienced over and over again. And I created the simulation to put myself within it and to interact with other people in the simulation. And it's for a purpose. It's bringing something else out of me to expand my individuated level of consciousness, to expand this being that God is. And so as I continue to learn, I learn more about what I am and what my power is and how I manifest and create. At least that's what the simulation is telling me is happening now.
I love that. I love that. That's really cool. And it's sort of like, you ever seen those horses like in New York City or just anywhere, a horse headed through a town, and they have those like little like blinder things on them?
Exactly.
Right. So to the horse, right, all it can see is what it's allowed to see, given what's placed in its over its eyes, right? But it doesn't change the ultimate reality of what's in that horse's space. Right. And so to me, awareness precedes choice. The isness that you're speaking to, the love intelligence, it is, even if we have blinders on, even if we can't fully see. And how I explain this, I used to do motivational speaking at schools and things like that. I don't do that anymore. I have so many students and so many businesses that I don't have time for that right now, and that's not my dharma anymore, but I used to. And I used to start my speeches, they do this introduction and they'd say, Preston Smiles, and I'd come out and I'd start dancing and I'd be like, hey everybody, and then I'd pretend like I was having a heart attack. And I would literally, and I'd tell all of the organizers, because I didn't want them to be like, call the police or whatever, or the paramedics. And I would literally get all the way to the ground, and people would be flipping out. Some people would run towards me. Some would be like, oh my God, call 911 or whatever the case may be. And then at some point, very soon, I'd pop up and I said, now this is where we're going to start. What was that? What occurred in you the moment you saw that I was hurt, right? And I would explain to them mirror neurons and how when we perceive that another person, another being is being hurt, we can oftentimes feel that, right? You see someone break their leg, there's a part of you that winces like, right? Because there's that part of us that no matter how much programming that tries to keep us separate and away from each other knows that there's only one of us here. So that's what I believe when it comes to consciousness.
Thank you for putting it in such beautiful words. And my interpretation is we have a greater sense of our oneness now than we did 10 years ago, that something is discernibly happening in my consciousness and in others that they interact with.
Yes.
It's not just something I'm learning. There's changing, the world is changing, and more I can feel and see those around me as if they are me.
Yes.
So it's a greater level of empathy, but perhaps more than just empathy. I can hear their thoughts. They can hear mine. We're a group being is forming.
Yes.
Do you sense this? And what is your inner response to this change?
Yes, 100%. I sense it. And not only do I sense it just like internally, you can see it, right? I have a business where a couple of them, one of them I help coaches, it's called Elementum Coaching Institute. And I help coaches become weapons, right? Like really good. Because most coaching institutes and things of that nature avoid sex, they avoid trauma, they avoid money, they avoid God, right? Well, those are some of the biggest things people are traumatized from. And so how are you going to teach somebody how to coach if you don't do that? But long story short is oftentimes, and I also help coaches build webinar funnels and things of that nature with another product I have. And oftentimes coaches will say, well, there's so many coaches and there's so many healers and so many light workers. Like, I'm not going to make money. Oh my God. And I say, you know what? I understand that you're in a bubble and you think that's true. But the truth is that there are 7.7 billion people on the planet right now. There's not even enough coaches yet, but there's so many people waking up to the same truth that it appears like it's flooded. It appears like there's too many, but this is a beautiful thing. I show this slide in my webinars that I do where the coaching and knowledge-based industry in 2019 was $15 billion. In 2022, it went up to $20 billion. By 2028, it is perceived that it'll go up to 365 billion. And by 2034, I believe, 1 trillion, right? And I ask all the coaches in there, why do you think that is? And people usually get to it, which is the old way of doing life. You know, there's generations coming in that are looking at how their parents and their parents did things and saying that doesn't work for us anymore, right? These generations care about the planet because they know the planet is a living organism that is directly connected to them, right? They care about each other. Is it annoying to have to think about like he, she, they, him, all that stuff, like all the gender non-binary X, Y, and Z? That's challenging, yes, but I'm here for it. That is, to me, a representation of us coming closer. The Me Too movement, yes, all of it, yes, all of this is us moving closer to a oneness, to some semblance of equality and understanding that we're interdependent, right? Nothing against heterosexual white males, which you can be considered, nothing, right? But the whole world has been set up for that, for a person like that. I'll say this in a very careful way. And so that can be scary, right? It could be scary to go, well, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean I have to care about like people's pronouns? The fuck is that? Like, I never had to do that in the 80s or the 90s. Right? I didn't have to do that in 2005. What do you mean? I have to care that women get paid the same. What is that? Like, it's beautiful, right? And I have a daughter. I have little kids. Like, for me, I'm excited that the world is turning in that way. And yes, when I go into prayer, when I go into ceremony, when I get into spaces with other coaches and healers and light workers, we all feel it. People, hey, you want to hear something? For those of you who are wondering, one of the reasons why I've been so successful from a financial standpoint is I genuinely try to help as many people as possible. Like, genuinely. There are thousands of humans around this planet, thousands, at least 10, that have been in my workshops or in my programs or in my spaces and will tell you firsthand, that dude went way beyond the expectations to help me. And whether I'm in I'm in the bush in Africa, or I'm in Bali, or I'm in Australia, or I'm in, the bathroom at a restaurant, if I know what my calling is in this lifetime is to serve. And it's not to serve when I have this much money or this much, it's to serve no matter what, always. So when I was broke, serving. Millions, serving. That's my job. Mm-hmm. The rest of it will take care of itself. And truly, if you get that there is a circulation, right? The blood does not belong to the veins, right? The veins are there to just circulate, just to be the container, the context for the blood to flow. Money is exactly the same. That black shirt you have on, Brian, you had no resistance on the line to getting that shirt, just like I didn't, or this chair, right? And so money or chair or couch or anything, all of it exists, right? Our job when it comes to abundance is to recognize where we have stories made up about certain parts of abundance, right? We never go, there's not enough air, right? We don't even think about air, right? And so the laws of circulation, just like the laws of buoyancy or the laws of gravity, right? We don't question the law of gravity, but most of us don't understand the law of circulation, right? And so for me, I've tuned into that thing, and it just pours.
It just pours. Now, as we come together and as we have these movements of awakening,
yes,
there's also a movement of separation. There's an equal movement of duality. At every step we grow, there's a step of conflict. And it's sometimes it's easy if we're watching the media. It just seems like that we all hate each other. That there's a battle between the self and serving, as you talk about, serving myself and then serving others. And this battle continues. How do we integrate into this growing sense of awareness of this duality of serving myself and others, this conflict, this duality in the world?
Yes. So I would only challenge that it may not be equal, right? It's there, but I don't think it's equal. And the weapon of mass distraction, also known as our phones, can be deeply detrimental for that. And so we're always voting, right? When we talk about manifestation, oftentimes people teach it in an obsolete way because they talk about your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and they think that it's just you as an individual, but it's not. It's us as a collective. And so I'm always voting and putting my vote somewhere, right? And so our job as a collective is to vote for the world we do want to see, is to swim in and spend time and energy in that space. When I was in practitioner school, I was in a class called The Power of Prayer. And one of the things we would do is we would turn on the news and then we would bless the mess. It's called Bless the Mess, right? And I'm going to break something down. So there's sympathy. She says, I feel sorry for you. There's empathy, which says, I will feel what you're feeling. And then there's compassion, which says, I am aware of the pain and suffering you may be experiencing, but I am going to keep my consciousness high. And to me, that's the invitation for us, for the ones that are awakening and also knowing I am in no way doubting what you're saying, because sex trafficking is at an all-time high. The usage of porn is at an all-time high. There is a shadow 100%. The question is how do we heal the shadow, right? And a part of it is making sure that we don't sympathize, which would be victimizing. And there's a way to have, I'll call it empathetic compassion, right? Because compassion to me is the highest vibration in that. When I empathize with you, I'm going to feel what you're feeling. And if I'm feeling what you're feeling and you're feeling shame and guilt, which is causing suffering, then our vibrations are both lowered. Now I've come to where you are, right? And is that going to serve us? Or will it serve us for me to recognize the pain that a person may be in, but keep my vibration high? So the work collectively is to bless the mess, is to recognize that it's there, do our due diligence, but keep it clean. Keep it clean.
Is there a way that we can manifest a change in the world on things like you're talking about, like sex trafficking? Can we use the power of our minds with what we now understand and this growing power we have to change those things?
Yes, it comes with it. The main piece is awareness and understanding that your complaint is your mission. So for me, as I started to make it as a coach, I would look back and be like, oh, these marketers are just feeding on coaches. And I would complain to my wife while simultaneously doing nothing about it. And then at one point, I was telling one of my clients, your complaint is your mission. And it hit me. Well, what about what you complain about? You don't help coaches. You got rich and left them behind. How about you go help? Right? And so to me, that's the work. Whatever, if your thing is dolphins and you're complaining about the dolphins being killed, that's your work. If your thing is sex trafficking and you have a heart for that, that's your work from compassion, right? Elephants, that's your work from compassion. Because we don't want to get caught in the illusion, right? The moment we leave these skin suits, we go back to isness, to the soul, right? And the soul has never been hurt, harmed, or endangered. We go right back to infinite, right? And so this, even the fearing of death, right? We get to normalize having conversations about sex. If I hold 1,000 people, I can almost guarantee you that 900 of them would have trauma around sex and sexuality. And it would be from the church. It would be from their parents mainly, and them exploring with their cousin or X, Y, and Z, or something happening with their fucking uncle or whatever it is. But that thing, right? You want to heal the world? Go to the places that are taboo, that everybody's afraid of. That's another reason why I continue to be successful, is because I lean into the places that are scary and most people want to shy away from. The true healing is in the areas, right? I say this in my workshops. What imprisons you also points to your freedom. The very thing that you've been avoiding and suppressing and denying and pretending it's not there, that molestation, that rape, that thing that happened when you were 16 and you drank too much, that you still have to address that. Right? The little boy in me that didn't cry when my friends were shot and killed, I had to address that. That is why I have energetic real estate. So when we say there's 4 levels of consciousness: to me, victim consciousness; by me, creator consciousness; through me, where we move out of the way and allow ourselves to be used; and as me, I can access through me and as me because I've created energetic real estate. by leaning into the places that I usually don't, that most people wouldn't, that my dad didn't, and his dad didn't, and his dad didn't. That's the work.
Thank you. We got a little bit of time. Just one final question. I always like to ask high performers because I want to model you, you know. So tell me a little bit more about your routine in the morning. What do you do? What is your general routine when you wake up in the morning? When do you wake up and what do you do?
Yes. First of all, I go to sleep at about between 7:30 and 8:30. But I also have I have 4 kids under 4. So for the last almost, I'd say 4 years, between 7:30 and 8:30, I'm in the bed. Right. It's a rare time if I'm not asleep by 8:39.
Wow.
So that's 1. 2, because my children wake up a lot and there's all that stuff too. But the main thing that I want you to hear that I've been doing nonstop for almost 9 years is every day I ask myself, what's the one thing that if I did nothing else today, I literally did nothing else today, but if I did that one thing, it would create space and room for what I truly desire. Right? So I'm whittling down to the most precious, most important things of each day. So what that does is I'll ask myself, another way I'll say it is, what could I do today that would take me a week? What could I do this week that would take me a month? What could I do this month that would take me a year? That right there is one of the reasons why I personally have been more successful than anybody in my family. And I'm part of the 1% in the coaching space. And I don't just do that with business. I do it with my wife. I do it with my kids. I do it with my health, right? Okay. So if there's 20 million things I want to do for my health, and there's only a little bit of time in the day, like, the moment I get off of here, I'm going to pick my kids up from school, right? A school I created. I bought a house and put a school in the house. And there's 15 kids that go there, right? Wow. So I'm going to go do that. And today, you know what I did? I rode my bike for about 3 miles. That was the one thing I did for my health. If you ask me, hey, P, what's the one thing you did for your business? Oh, I shot 3 modules for a webinar program that I'm teaching. Right? What's the one thing you did for your relationship? Oh, I kissed my wife and told her I loved her before she left. Right? I cooked her breakfast. Right? These one thing. That's my trick.
Thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge, and I appreciate all the inspiration you've given me, not only in this episode, but through all the other teachings that you've provided freely, and it's meant a lot. You've made me a better person, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everybody, check out Preston Smiles. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Reality Revolution.
Love you. Appreciate you, Brian.
We return you now to your local announcer.